Let me ask you something. What do you do to pay the bills, right? What is the thing that you get up in the morning and you think about first thing? Because this is the thing that you do that puts food on the table, puts your kids through school. It is the thing that allows you to live, right? This is your job. It's important. It's the one thing that is in your control that you are able to do well in order to create a life for yourself. Simon Peter in Luke chapter 5, he also has a job and his livelihood depends on this job, and that job is catching fish. Kind of a stressful job if you want consistency, because someday the fish bite, someday the fish don't bite. And today just happened to be one of those days where the fish were not biting. They had had a really unsuccessful night of fishing. They were discouraged, beaten down. They were washing their nets. They were quite literally throwing in the towel when a guy named Jesus walks up to them, gets on their boat with them, and tells them one more time, I want you to drop your nets into the deep and I want you to catch some fish. Simon Peter says, no, we've done this all night. I promise you there's no fish in there, but Master, because you have told us to do it, we will do it. They dropped their nets into the deep, just like Jesus said, and the amount of fish they caught was so big, so wide that it began to actually break their nets. They had to call their friends over from other boats to come and help them because the amount of fish they caught was so extreme that the boats were getting overflowed and even beginning to sink. It was interesting because right after this happened, Simon Peter, he's amazed, astonished at what God has just done for him. And he looks at Jesus and he says, go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinner, right? In light of all that God has done for me, I cannot believe that I'm not worthy to be in your presence, Jesus. And Jesus' response to him is super interesting. He says, don't be afraid. From now on, you will fish for people. Something interesting about this. Simon Peter has a job. He has a direction, he has a mission. The moment that he takes that job, that direction, that mission, he releases it from his own control, and instead he surrenders it and puts it into the hands of Jesus. Something amazing happens. A multiplication happens, a flourishing happens. When we put something into the hands of Jesus, taking it off of our own plate and our own control, the things we give begin to flourish, they begin to multiply, they begin to grow greater with greater blessing, things that we would never even imagine God begins to do with that surrender. We have to begin to give these things to God, A, because they belong to God, but then also because God is glorified through these things. When you surrender things to God, they are more fruitful. When you surrender the things that are in your control to God, it leads to God's glory, God becoming more famous and less of our own becoming famous. And also, lastly, when we surrender things to God, give them to God out of our own control, these things lead to greater kingdom impact. Jesus says, don't be afraid. From this point forward, you're going to become fishers of men, AKA this job that you have lived on. This actually isn't your everything anymore. I'm going to give you a different calling, a new job. It's going to blow your minds how amazing it is. And guess what they did? They dropped their nets, they left them forever, and they followed Jesus. Their job wasn't everything anymore. Actually, following Jesus was their everything. The kingdom became their mission field. Let me just ask you a question today. Are the things in your control consuming you? Is your job consuming you? Is your health consuming you? Are your relationships consuming you? And are they consuming you because they're falling solely under your control? Do they need to be in God's hands? Do we need to surrender them to God so God can multiply them in ways that we could never even imagine?